Hello friend, welcome back to Acre Homestead. What I am about to do is start to process all of this garlic. I just took all the garlic dirty papers off of them. I cleaned up the roots to try to get as much dirt off as possible. These are some zucchinis that I just harvested this morning that I need to stick in the fridge. But what I want to do is see if I can get all of the garlic peeled today. I'm talking all of the elephant garlic, all of these tiny little soft neck garlic varieties. I'm glad that I have garlic, but man, is this the smallest head of garlic you ever did see, but at least it's better than nothing. So I'm going to go ahead and just start processing all this. Let me get these zucchinis in the fridge. Got a compost bowl out and a bowl that we're going to put the cloves in. I grabbed a knife. Where did I put my knife? Here it is. And I'm just going to start peeling these garlics. They're pretty fresh, so they will be a little bit tougher to peel, but we're just going to get going on it and get these garlics peeled. This is elephant garlic here that I am peeling first. I thought I would peel something that's a little bit easier than peeling all those itty bitty teeny tiny cloves, just so that I feel like I was getting somewhere. I was able to, peel a few things and get a lot done. And then we end up peeling the small heads of garlic. On this day, all I was planning on doing was to peel the garlic. I was not planning to turn it into its final product of what I wanted to preserve it for this entire year's worth of garlic culinary experiments that I'll be using it with, or just, regular cooking. But I get in the kitchen and I just end up keep working. So we are going to not only peel all this garlic today, we are also going to turn it into its final product. And we end up doing something this year that I've never done before, and I'm really excited about it. If you've watched some of my other garlic processing days, we do a ton of different fun things with garlic. This is the last of the elephant garlic, and then the rest of them are these little heads. So we're making progress, but there is a ways to go. Started with something a little bit easier, and then we'll finish off with a little bit more tedious stuff. So I found it helps to take a meat tenderizer and kind of break up the cloves for these little ones, and then they can kind of pop out a little bit. So this takes me hours and hours and hours to do, and you'll see just exactly how far along we get on this process. But if you've watched any of my other garlic processing videos, this is the third time I have harvested a year's worth of garlic. And we turn garlic into all different things. We turn it into garlic powder, confit garlic, where we cook the garlic down in oil. And that's really cool because you get roasted garlic that I freeze in little containers, and you can use that all year long. Plus, when you strain the oil out, you get garlic infused oil. I still have a ton of garlic infused oil, so I'm not going to do that this year. In the past, we've also done honey fermented garlic and just regular fermented garlic. So far, probably the things that I love the most are also where I take these garlic cloves, I puree them up, and I turn them into little pucks. You've seen, if you've watched any of my cooking videos recently, and I cook with garlic, those have been some of my favorite things I've done. And I also really, really like the garlic oil, because you can use that garlic oil in salad dressings, in cooking, and just giving some garlic flavor. And it's just really, really delicious. I like the confit garlic as well, but that doesn't have a very long shelf life in the refrigerator. So I, this last year, put it in little 4-ounce jars, glass jars, and I froze those. And they only take about an hour or two to thaw at room temperature. And those are really good in also salad dressings, pizza toppings, and really anything you would want roasted garlic. It's just absolutely delicious. But we're not going to do that this year because I have enough garlic oil already. I have some confit garlic in the refrigerator or freezer, And I don't want to keep any of this garlic fresh because they're such teeny tiny heads. I would rather just go ahead and process it and turn it into something that I know that I will use a ton of, and I won't let it just sit in the pantry going bad because I just don't feel like peeling it on kind of a weekly basis as I cook. So we're going to turn this into something that hopefully I love using. I'm going to turn all of this garlic into a couple different things. I'm still trying to figure out what exactly I'm going to turn it all into. This garlic here, I know I am going to freeze dry it and turn it into garlic powder. These are all the elephant cloves. I'm going to go wash my cutting board off. I'm going to rinse these out. I'm going to go ahead and wash this too. Okay, I just washed the cutting board because what I want to do now is I want to process the elephant garlic. I'm going to turn all of this elephant garlic into garlic powder. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to wash all of these cloves first, just because there was some residual dirt on the papers. For the garlic powder for the freeze dryer, I'm gonna cut the garlic into smaller pieces just so that it freeze dries quicker. I do have the freeze dryer going right now. So all I'm gonna do is get these prepped to go into the freeze dryer by freezing them first. I'm just doing a rough chop just so that they freeze dry a little faster. I think what my goal for next year is going to be to grow a ton of elephant garlic, and that's all the garlic that I want to turn into garlic powder. All of this elephant garlic here is going to be turned into garlic powder. And then I want to grow some soft neck varieties of garlic for fresh eating that I want to braid. I haven't been able to braid garlic in 2 years just because of how life has happened. I wanted to do that this year, but my garlic was not worth braiding. And then I want to grow some hard neck varieties that are going to be just easy to peel because they're nice big cloves that I will probably turn into confit garlic and roasted garlic and things like that. But this year we're going to do something fun with this garlic. I'm going to turn it into garlic butter. So I just pulled out of the freezer 4 cups of butter that I'm gonna let get to room temperature before we process this garlic. And then some of the garlic I'm gonna put into bags, and I'm gonna freeze just the cloves whole peeled so that I can use it in canning recipes coming up through the harvest season. So we're gonna need garlic for salsas this summer, just for enjoying eating, and I could throw whole frozen garlic cloves into fresh salsa and that'll be just fine. I can throw it into recipes that I'm going to make into hot sauce. And so I want to freeze some whole that way. But all of this elephant garlic, just gonna throw in this Ziploc bag. I wouldn't want to put this in my freezer uncovered because it would, make my freezer smell of garlic. And because my freeze dryer is going right now, I can't put this directly into my freeze dryer. I don't like dehydrating garlic that much because it is such a strong odor. When you freeze dry garlic, I don't have any odor that is emitted by the freeze dryer. And so I would way rather freeze dry it than dehydrate it, because dehydrating it I dehydrated onions. No, what was it? I think it was onions, not garlic. In my laundry room, the first year I ever dehydrated onions, and it was awful. Awful. Everything in that laundry room had to be re-washed. It was not good. So that's one thing that the freeze dryer is really cool about. So I'm going to double bag this garlic in my freezer just because I really don't want anything in my freezer to smell like garlic. When the freeze dryer is done running, I will get this garlic in the freeze dryer. Now for the garlic here, I'm going to put, I don't know, how much garlic should I say frozen for fresh eating? These will just be fresh whole cloves we can enjoy for whatever we want fresh garlic for. I'm gonna go wash my hands. I'm gonna throw these 2 smaller bags of garlic in this silicone bag. And you know what? I think I'm gonna throw this one in there too, just for another layer of protection in the freezer. But the elephant garlic won't be in there very long, but it doesn't hurt since it'll fit in there for a little extra protection. So I'm gonna go throw this in the freezer. I still have garlic that I put in this freezer from last year's harvest. So I'm gonna leave last year's harvest here, so I make sure I go through that first, and then I will get that garlic out of the freezer. So I'm gonna clean up before we process this, because we're going to make something really fun with this that I can't wait to make. Something I've never made before. I've done the confit garlic many times. I've done quite a few things. I've done the fermented garlic. I've done the honey fermented garlic. But I've never done garlic butter for the freezer. So that's gonna be fun to get that done. I'm gonna show you something. I did not peel all the garlic. I have this much left. I got tired. So I will do this at some point, but not today. I'm gonna put this downstairs in the basement, and probably at some point when I have, I don't know, with all the extra time I have, at some point I'll pull those out and do something with them. Maybe I'll use that for fresh eating garlic, I don't know. I just realized one of the pieces of equipment we need in order to make this compound butter is in the dishwasher, because I did some veggie prep and processing earlier today. I'm gonna get this out. I'm gonna wash this up by hand real quick. I'm gonna have to dry it out really well. Well, no, I'm not. So I'm gonna make the butter in the mixer, I think. But I am gonna process these cloves of garlic in the food processor. What I did last year is when I had all of this fresh garlic that I had blended up in the food processor, I blended it up with just a few tablespoons of olive oil. And what that did is it kind of just created a little bit of a paste. And I took a cookie scoop and I scooped that out onto cookie sheets, and I have what are called garlic pucks in my freezer. If you've seen any of my cooking, when I put those garlic pucks in there, that's homegrown garlic that I processed that way last year. What I'm gonna do a little different though is, this is going to be, instead of with olive oil, we're gonna do butter, and we're gonna do a higher butter content, and it's gonna be a garlic butter. But kind of the same concept a little bit. All of this in here. Well, maybe, yeah, I think we can fit all of it. That looks about like what we want. I have 4 cups of butter that is softened. I pulled this out of the freezer. We're gonna get this into our mixer. I do have 1 more cup. I think I'm actually gonna go ahead and get it out. So I'm gonna do a total of 5 cups of butter. This is grass-fed butter, and you can see how beautiful and yellow it is. So that is 5 cups of butter in there, and I'm gonna try to soften it a little bit more in the KitchenAid. Now I'm gonna add 1 tablespoon of garlic for every half cup of butter. I thought we were gonna use more garlic than this to make garlic butter, but I just looked up recipes. And this is the ratio they said to do. I wanna make sure that the middle of this butter is getting mixed in with the garlic, so we're gonna put that down, close that. I have pieces of parchment paper. I'm gonna take my butter, I'm gonna put it on the parchment paper, and I'm gonna make these into logs. I have these pre-cut pieces of parchment paper. I love these things. These were a gift and I will continue to buy them for myself because they're so convenient. I use them for so many things. But for this, I found that it was about 1 cup of butter fit really well in one of these pre-cut pieces of parchment paper. Right here, I'm trying to only use 4 pieces and then I go and grab another one. It makes sense that about 1 cup per parchment paper. And I'm just putting it toward the end and trying not to touch the butter with my hand at all. I did make sure this butter was soft when I did this, but I did not want it runny at all. It was still pretty firm when I put it in the KitchenAid mixer, and I used the KitchenAid, just the beating motion to kind of soften it a little bit more. But I knew that I was going to be shaping this and I didn't want it to melt, because when butter melts and then you cool it and reharden it, it can kind of get an interesting consistency. So I wanted to make sure it was cold enough to keep its nice fresh butter, consistency when I go to refreeze it, but also soft enough that I could work with it, because I knew I was going to need to be able to shape it into these logs that I wanted to shape it into. And I end up using 5 pieces of parchment paper for 5 cups of butter, and that worked out perfect. I thought that it was going to take a lot more garlic to make this much garlic butter. So we still have a whole bunch. We probably have 3 cups of garlic in here that I'm going to turn into garlic pucks, because I sure do love those garlic pucks. There's nothing better than not having to peel fresh garlic. If I can take the time, well, I still have all those garlic cloves, but I got the majority of them done, and get the majority of my garlic peeling for an entire year done, that sounds like a win to me. So this works really well with this parchment paper, this method where I'm, look how beautiful these are. My idea with this is that I can just take a knife and cut a section of this garlic butter off, and I can use it to saute something with. I can top a steak with it, I can make garlic bread, I can make garlic knots, I can do a bunch of things with it. Gift it, oh my goodness, how beautiful of a gift of one of these logs of homemade garlic butter to someone. So now we have space on here to make more garlic pucks with all of our garlic, and I'm not going to put anything else in this. I'm gonna leave it just as plain garlic. We're gonna get these in little pucks. Last time I did this, I put a little bit of olive oil in there, thinking that it would help bind everything. This time, because it's just plain, I think there's enough moisture in it that once it freezes, it'll freeze into a solid puck. But I'm curious to know if it works better. This is a good experiment with the oil or without the oil. This is only the second time I've ever done this, and it's the first time I've done it without using the oil. I think it'll work just fine though. Looking for a spatula, I don't see one. I want to get every little last bit of this garlic out of here. It was so tedious to peel. I don't want any of it to go to waste. We're gonna make dinner now. We got this massive project done. Feels so good. Sometimes when I do food preservation projects, it happens right when the harvest comes in. This harvest came in just about 2 weeks ago, and it is completely processed now basically for the year, other than obviously I need to run the stuff through the freeze dryer, and then we have the fresh frozen stuff we can use, but it's all processed and I don't have to worry about it going bad. But sometimes, like those strawberries, they're preserved waiting for me, but I might turn them into something like jam, but I'll do that later, probably in the winter when I have more time. But this project is taken care of. As soon as those garlic pucks are frozen, probably in the next 2-3 hours, I'm gonna take them out of the freezer immediately, double bag them in a Ziploc bag, and they will be ready to use whenever we need garlic. Now we're gonna go ahead and make some dinner. Over the weekend, I was doing some recipe testing on some ciabatta, and we have not eaten it yet. And so I thought, let's turn this ciabatta loaf into pizza. So I've got my loaf here. I have a jar of pizza sauce. Let's make dinner really quickly. Let's go ahead and get the oven turned on. There still needs to be quite a bit of cleanup in the kitchen, but I figured let's go ahead and get dinner cooking so that while it's in the oven, I will finish cleaning up this garlic mess. Don't even look at my floors. They are covered in garlic paper and stickiness. So this is one of the test recipes, and I think you couldn't eat that much bread. I made probably 12 recipes worth of bread over the weekend. Thankfully, we had a couple family dinners. I put some of it in the freezer, most of it, I gave away as gifts. Thankfully, most of my family eats bread, so I was able to gift the bread away. So I just cut that in half. I've never made a ciabatta pizza before, but I figured it's basically the same concept of taking any sort of bread and turning it into pizza. I've got lots of yummy things you can put on it. So the first thing I'm gonna do is get my bread on this baking sheet. The next thing I'm gonna do is scrape off any of this garlic butter, and I'm gonna put that on the bread so we don't waste any of that garlicky, buttery goodness. I normally wouldn't put butter on pizza or garlic butter on pizza, but I don't want any of this to go to waste. So we're gonna get it onto our bread. It's just gonna make it even more delicious. Look how much was still left in here we would have wasted. Okay, I think that's about all I can get. So I'm gonna take this and get this spread on here. This is some pizza sauce from 2021. I have some garden peppers that I harvested this morning, and I pre-diced when I was doing some food preservation this morning because I knew we were going to have pizza for dinner. What inspired this was the fact that I had this bread left over, and then I had some pepperonis in the refrigerator that needed to be used up. I probably should have put these on first, but this will work out just fine. Next thing we're gonna add to our ciabatta are some thinly sliced pieces of mozzarella. This is a soft, tender mozzarella, and it smells so good. We're gonna get this on here. This might not be the best thing. I don't know. It might be too much bread for pizza, but I think it's a good way to kind of use things that need to be used up, and it could be the most delicious thing. It's hard to know until you try. That's the fun thing about experimenting in the kitchen, is sometimes things can turn out to be winners that you weren't expecting that was going to be a winner. I'm gonna pop that in the oven for probably 20 to 30 minutes or so, just until it is warmed all the way through, the cheese is melted, the pepperoni's nice and bubbly. And now let me show you a great way to freeze baked bread for really, really easy use for the future. If you are anything like Josh and I, you have a hard time going through a whole loaf of bread, especially homemade bread, before it goes bad, because homemade bread just does not last. It doesn't have the shelf life as store-bought bread. And Josh and I cannot go through a whole loaf before it goes bad. So what I like to do when I freeze baked bread is I like to slice it first and then freeze it. Because if you freeze the whole loaf, you kind of have to thaw the whole loaf before you can slice it. So then you're thawing the whole loaf, and if you have a hard time going through a whole loaf, that can be the challenge. So what I do is I pre-slice my bread, and then I put the sliced bread in the freezer. So when I want to make a sandwich or something like that, I can just pull 2 pieces out. I can throw those in the toaster or on a griddle or in the oven to thaw, and then I can make a sandwich. I want to have bread in the freezer because it is BLT season. We have been enjoying BLTs, and so I want homemade bread out and ready to go, but we can't go through a whole loaf. So in the freezer it goes. This was some bread that I was making over the weekend, and I went to go help Josh on something. I came back in and it had overproved, so I let it rise way too long, so that means it kind of collapsed just a little bit on the top. Overall, I mean, the slice and the inside still looks pretty darn good, but it's not perfect, but it still tastes absolutely delicious. So even if you kind of mess up homemade bread sometimes, it's generally still eatable. This is still plenty eatable for some really delicious sandwiches. So I'm just gonna wrap this back up, throw this in the freezer, and then I need to get these floors clean because my goodness, they are covered in garlic paper. We are going to slice up one more thing for dinner tonight. One thing we love this time of year to put on pizza. And I don't know if you would call what I'm making tonight pizza. It's more like bread with pizza sauce and pizza toppings on it. But we love to slice up garden fresh tomatoes. Look at this tomato that I just picked. This is a Paul Robeson tomato. We're gonna slice this up and have that fresh on top of our pizza for dinner tonight. I'm first going to clean the counter one more time before I clean the floors, so that anything on the counter can end up on the floors that needs to. Then I'll clean the floors. This is how I like to do things in the kitchen, or kind of in general. I like to bulk batch do things. If I'm gonna do it, let's just go ahead and do all of it. And so that's what I did on this day. Got in there and peeled as much garlic as possible. I do end up peeling the rest of the garlic. I end up peeling it outside, which does help kind of keep some of the mess out there. I just didn't do it on this day because it got pretty hot out there and I didn't have anywhere for shade. So when I go out there a couple days later, I go and sit in the shade on the table out there and I'm able to peel the rest of it. But I am someone who likes to kind of bulk batch do things, whether that's cooking or any sort of laundry, any sort of project. Just get in there, get as much of it done as possible. And in this case, messy up the kitchen one time in the morning. I did a bunch of other food preservation projects. And so I knew that the floors were going to need to be cleaned. And so I just wanted to go ahead and get as much done as possible so that I messy up the kitchen one time and then I can clean it up and I can have a big project done. And because of this, I now don't really probably have to peel any garlic unless I buy garlic at the store until next garden season, which is pretty incredible. I probably won't buy garlic at the store because I have garlic from last year's harvest still powdered and freeze dried, and I still have some garlic pucks, plus all of the stuff we just dealt with today. That is probably more than a year's worth, which is great, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to plant a bunch of garlic this fall, and in 2024 we will have another good garlic harvest. I just came in from watering all the plants. We got the kitchen clean, a good amount of preservation done today, and dinner took less than 5 minutes to put together. So let's cut into this and see what it looks like. I'm excited about this. I think it looks good. And that is how dinner is going to be served tonight. All right, I think it is ready to be tasted. It's so hot, so hot. That tomato, how pretty is that tomato? Hot. Good. I think I like regular pizza better, but I think this is a fantastic way to make less than a 5-minute dinner for Josh and I, plus plenty of lunches. It's crunchy. The bread is really good. It's cheesy. And that tomato. Oh, I just tasted the poblano pepper, because that's what I put on here. I put a poblano pepper and some bell peppers. That is really, really good. I think I wouldn't call this pizza, I guess, because I like pizza. I would just call this doctored up ciabatta bread, I guess. Oh, I just got the garlic butter. Oh my goodness. I need a napkin. The garlic butter might be something I need to try on just regular pizza. That is phenomenal to taste that garlic butter. Well, I'm excited for Josh to try dinner tonight. This is gonna be good. Thanks for hanging out as we processed all this garlic. My house smells like garlic. When I went outside to water all the pots, I came in and I was like, it is pretty strong. So I think what I'm gonna do is tonight, once it cools off a little bit, I'm gonna open some windows and try to get some airflow in here to try to get some of this garlic fumes out of here, because it is pretty strong. There will be no vampires visiting us tonight, that is for sure. Well, friend, I just wanna say thank you for taking time out of your day to spend time with me as we got some food preservation projects done today. I'm really excited about this year's garlic harvest, even though It is probably an eighth of what I got last year. It's probably less than an eighth, but it is still more than what I was expecting. I might not have had any if I didn't plant any. So even though it was pretty tedious to get all those cloves, whew, that was tedious. It kind of felt like a marathon. It was one of those like mental, I didn't even peel them all. I still probably have, I don't even know, 25 that still need to be peeled. But it felt like I kept having to like mentally keep going. And we got a lot done. So I'm really excited about that. I'm excited about this year's garden. We are just starting to get into the craziness of harvest. And I love it. I love it. So thank you for being here. If you want to watch some more of my videos, I can pop some right here. You can go enjoy between now and my next upload. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. And I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.